What's up, guys? Welcome to this edition of a Funko Popcast. I'm DK Wrestler.
And I'm MD Shady.
And in today's podcast, it's specifically titled, I Enjoy Collecting These Pops, and it's specifically part 2, considering that if you're a longtime listener of the channel, you guys know that we actually did this before, where I actually went through a list of my top 15 favorite Funko Pop sets to collect, whether it is just like a full-on set or just like a set of like one particular character, which I've done. And then when I'm going through this list, MD Shady would basically give his opinion of the Pops also and give a ranking out of 10. That time when we did the podcast, it was basically just after my birthday last year, and now it so happens as this gets released, it'll actually be just after MD Shady's birthday. So that's going to be how this podcast is going to go. MD Shady is going to talk about his top 15 favorite Funko Pop lineups that he collects, and I'm going to give my ranking of these Pop sets out of 10. So let's get right to this, MD.
Let's start off with one that I think I have the most of a love-hate relationship with, and that is the Pokemon Pops. They're awesome. I love them. I think that they're really cool. I collect a ton of Pokemon stuff, so I didn't know if I really wanted to get deep into collecting the Pokemon Pops, but I have decided that I will just collect the original 151 and then maybe a couple of Gen 2 stuff if Funko makes it, and I really do enjoy it. But the reason why I do have a love-hate relationship, I guess that's one of the parts, is because I don't want to get too deep into collecting the Funko Pops for Pokemon, but also all the bull variants that come out of Pokemon. Of course, like the silver metallic ones. The flocked ones were cool, but then when you have a Squirtle that's flocked and like a Charmander that's flocked, it starts to not really make sense. And then there was Pearlescent, which was bull as well, and then now we have the new like soft color, which is insane. Like literally, like who thought of this? Not Brian Mariotti. So it's just ridiculous, and that's why I really have a love-hate relationship with this. But 3 pops that I do want to see, I basically wrote 3 pops for every single one of these 15 sets that I'm talking about. The first is Gengar, of course, my favorite Pokemon of all time. It is in the rumor mill, so hopefully soon we do end up seeing that Gengar pop. And then a 3-pack of the legendary birds from Gen 1 from Kanto. I think that that would be amazing. I guess we could see them separately, but I feel like they should be in a 3-pack together. I think that that would look awesome. Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres, I think that they would look so awesome. Maybe even have it be like glow in the dark or something. I don't think it needs to have any specifications, but I think that that'd be pretty cool. And then lastly, Onix. I think that Onix is just such an interesting character design that it would be kind of hard to pull off in Funko Pop form. I think it would have to be a 6-inch box, unfortunately, because it would be a bigger pop, but I think that this could look really cool.
Yeah, the Pokemon lineup started out really strong, obviously giving us those Gen 1 Pokemon, and then yeah, for conventions it's like, alright, this year we're doing Flocked, next year we're gonna do Diamond Collection, and then we're gonna do Metallic, and then yeah, Pearlescent that still unfortunately exists today, and then the soft color, which I don't understand. As terms of the pops themselves, they look like Pokemon pops that they may have left out in the sun too long, and boom, they're soft color. The only thing I really like about it is like the box, but even then it's like, what's even the point? Obviously people like the other different gens, but I feel like more people gravitate towards that Gen 1 set. So as terms to ranking, and I will mention if there's any pops that I do want to see next for Pokemon, I would love to see Machamp. My ranking, I would honestly have to say either 5 or a 6 because of how the whole lineup has turned out. If we had got brand new Pokemon Pop throughout this entire time that they've existed, instead of just so many repeats, it could have been like an 8 or a 9.
Alright, now moving on to arguably my favorite set to collect for Funko in general, and that is the ad icons. I love them so much. I don't know, it's the nostalgic factor, I think, when you see some of these characters that you've seen either on packaging or inside of restaurants, stuff like that. Ad icons just brings me so much joy. I love looking at my ad icons collection. There's so many cool characters, and some that are pretty dang expensive, but I'm trying to whittle away at it and basically get a full collection of ad icons. They are just so awesome. When the McDonald's Pops came out, I was so happy. I was anticipating them for years, I guess. And then finally we did get McDonald's Pops, and like way more than I ever expected. I thought we were just gonna get like some of those main characters, but we've gotten a ton of different McNuggets as well as Captain Crook, which was an awesome surprise as well. But besides that, with the ad icons, there's just so much. There's something for everyone. I mean, when you look at the ad icons, there's a brand or two, there has to be, of something that you've either purchased or have had in your household. So they're just really awesome. I think that they're really for everybody. So the three pops that I have here for pops that I'd like to see next in the lineup, of course, is, speaking of McDonald's, Mac Tonight. I feel like this is a necessity, and I can't believe that we still haven't got a Mac Tonight Funko Pop. And then I also wrote Mr. Clean. I feel like there's not enough ad icons, or there's not enough in the set that's not just food related, and Mr. Clean is so iconic that I think it would be a very simple pop to do and would look awesome. And then the last one is the King from Burger King. I can't believe we haven't seen this. Of course, we did see the McDonald's pops, but I think it's about time that we do see the King.
Yeah, ad icons have come out with a lot of great pops, and they still do. When I think of like new ad icons, there isn't too much left besides, of course, where the is Pepsi? I've been waiting for Pepsi for so long, whether it's Pepsi Man, I don't even care if it's a Foodies pop where we got a Pepsi, a Diet Pepsi, Pepsi Zero can with eyes and legs. I just want a damn Pepsi Funko Pop. Cinnamon Toast Crunch would be something that I want, whether it's Wendell or it's the Crazy Squares. That'd be sweet. There's still a decent amount of ad icons to be made, but then there's also pops that question me a bit, like whenever they do like different variants of certain characters, like Chester Cheetah. There have been some that's like, did we really need a Diamond Collection Chester Cheetah? Not exactly. While rating the ad icons, I'm probably also going to include the Foodies in my ranking, which this is why I'm going to say like a 7 or 8 out of 10, maybe even closer to like a 7.5 because of the inclusion of Foodies to kind of continue the lineup. I think 7.5 would be my fair rating of the ad icon.
The next set that I have on here is, again, one of those sets that I love to collect in The Simpsons. It's such a cool set of pops. When you look at it with the OG Simpsons pops, I think they were number 1 through 4 in the television lineup, which was so awesome, and I do own the Krusty the Clown, which is cool. And then you just have so many different characters from Springfield, which are awesome. They translate very well into Funko Pop form. And then you even go deeper than that, and you have the Treehouse of Horror as well. Just an amazing set that I love to collect. I have almost a 100% complete collection, but there are a few pops at this point that I am missing that I need to collect, besides the 3 other OG pops. For pops that I would like to see in the set, I've talked about some of these characters a million times on the podcast because we don't need more variations of Homer and Bart. Let's get a 2-pack of Patty and Selma. I think that that'd be really cool. Principal Skinner, I think, is one that I'm surprised that we haven't seen yet. And then Smithers. I can't believe there's been no Smithers to go along with the Mr. Burns, which was part of the second wave of Simpsons pops, or technically the first if you don't include those 4 OG pops.
Yeah, the Simpsons pops have been pretty good for the most part. I mean, for the longest time, it was only that OG set that we got that are very pricey, and I may have seen a listing on Marketplace recently going for $2,200 for the 4 pops, which, yeah, that's how expensive they are. And then, yeah, I was really excited when 2019, I believe, rolled around. We got that official second wave of The Simpsons with, like, Mr. Burns and Grandpa Simpson and all of those characters, and then we expanded it with Treehouse of Horror, which I feel like at this point, there isn't too much left for Treehouse of Horror that they can do that would be like really exciting, because of course we've gotten pops like, let's say, Donut Head Homer, Flyboy Bart, the King Homer, Evil Groundskeeper Willie, the Raven Bart. There's been so many good moments from Treehouse of Horror that they have done already, but for the most part, I think they've done a solid set of The Simpsons. There were a couple of waves that were questionable, like that one Roman Empire wave that they did. It was one of the more recent ones. An overall rating, especially with like the new ones that are coming out, with like the Bart Simpson that's almost identical to the OG Bart, but it's more accessible. You have Martin, I believe. A pop that MD has been asking for a while is finally happening, being Milhouse as Fallout Boy. I'm gonna give it a 8 out of 10.
And the next set that I have on my list is Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. I really enjoy these pops. I think that they're really cool. Nostalgic. It reminds you of Christmas, of course, so they're really sweet. I do have a couple of the OG ones, but then I do have a basically complete set of the newest wave, besides the announcement of the even newer wave. But that is a wave that's awesome, because Moonracer's on there, which is awesome. Clarice is also in that wave, and Mrs. Claus. So a lot of good stuff for this new wave that's coming out. But besides that, the newer wave that we got, I think, was awesome for the addition of getting new sculpts for like Yukon and Rudolph and Bumble, but then also adding in a couple characters like the snowman. I can't remember his name right off the top of my head right now. So yeah, an awesome set with OG pops as well as newer stuff, and just so awesome and nostalgic. So 3 pops that I would like to see. I think that once they add these 3 pops, maybe they could do like 1 or 2 more, and then they would have to be done with the set. And those pops are the head elf. He's really cool. I think that would be cool to see him, maybe even in a 2-pack where you get like the tall elf. I don't even know what his name is, but the head elf would be really cool. Coach Comet, I think, is kind of necessary for this set. I think it'd be really cool to see a Coach Comet. And then last, I kind of changed the name because I'm not sure what exactly I can say, but the Jelly Blaster, I think, would be an awesome pop as well, especially if they did pair it in a 2-pack with, let's say, someone like Dolly or another one of those Misfit toys.
Yeah, the Rudolph line has been pretty sweet, especially with the newer ones that are basically like updated molds of the OG set. I could definitely see there being a couple more like you mentioned. I'm actually surprised that they haven't done like a pop where like maybe it is like, and it would be ridiculously NASA for this to happen, but like what if they did like Santa Claus on a sleigh and then the 8 reindeers? Like, that would be maybe as long as this table that we have our recording device on right now to do this podcast, to fit 8 or 10, I don't even know, however the song goes for Dasher and Prancer and Connor and whatever the fuck the other... whatever the names of the goddamn reindeers are. But basically, or you could just do, you know what, just to make it simpler and less expensive, Santa Claus and then Rudolph. Who the cares about the other reindeers? Maybe like Christmas fans, like especially if Mick Foley's listening to this podcast, he may care about the other reindeers. But yeah, you know what? As terms to what we've gotten so far, I'll give it an 8 out of 10.
Then the next set that I have on here is for my favorite hockey team, the Washington Capitals. They've done some really cool stuff, some awesome versions of Alexander Ovechkin, as well as TJ Oshie. I think it's a pretty decent set, but of course, being a fan, I would like to see it grow. And the 3 pops that I think are basically necessary for this set are Nicholas Backstrom. We need to see a Nicholas Backstrom pop. As well as Tom Wilson. I think he's kind of cemented himself in the legacy of Washington Capitals as being one of those really awesome Capitals, a great enforcer. People hate him, but that's great for me because you hate him for a good reason, because he's a great player and he'll kind of put you in your place. And then finally is Slapshot, the Eagle, the mascot for the Washington Capitals. That is a totally necessary pop, which is really unfortunate that we haven't seen in the first couple waves that we did see of the NHL mascots, but hopefully one day we will.
For me, obviously, actually, it's good that you mentioned about the Washington Capitals because, of course, if you listen to that first part of this specific topic, I mentioned about Pittsburgh Penguins, which is my favorite NHL team. So it's cool that obviously MD mentioned about the Washington Capitals for this podcast and what he would like to see. I can't really speak much about the Washington Capitals because I don't really know much about the players and what they could do. So I guess maybe I'll go the route of like what I think you did for that podcast, is just talking about hockey in general, I guess, of what I want to see. But I guess I think I did mention when talking about Pittsburgh, I must have said Iceberg, the mascot for the next pop, especially because it's hard to like predict what you want to see for Pittsburgh pops when there's constantly a change in players besides literally the players they've made thus far that are currently on the team, like of course Sidney Crosby, who had just signed a 2-year extension, I believe, to his Pittsburgh Penguins contract, and then Evgeny Malkin and Chris Letang. So who knows what's going to be next for Pittsburgh Penguins? Who knows what's going to be next for Washington Capitals? However, what we've been seeing lately with Fanatics' website is that, I don't know, we're kind of seeing some Santa Claus pops dressed up in the outfits. So I wouldn't be surprised that because they've done NFL and NBA that we could see Santa Claus wearing a Washington Capitals jersey, doing a nice little slap shot there or something. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure that there's definitely some players, at least one more in the next couple of years that they can do that's brand new instead of just like doing revamps of like, let's say, Ovi. But as terms of the set, there is quite a bit of Ovechkins. There are a couple of other players that done like TJ Oshie and Braden Holtby, I believe, and John Carlson. So I'll give it a 7 out of 10. And especially because the newer Ovies are pretty sweet with like the missing tooth.
The next set of pops that I have on my list here is for The Emperor's New Groove. I love these pops. That is one of my favorite Disney movies of all time, so I knew that I had to collect the pops. They are wicked, especially when you get some kind of obscure ones like the Angel and Devil version of Kronk, which is just so funny that we've seen those pops. It's just so funny because it's just from one little moment in the movie that you never really think of, like, oh yeah, let's get a pop of this. So whoever originally thought of that is so smart for that. And then, of course, like, we've seen Cusco, as well as Cusco as the llama or alpaca or whatever he is, the different versions of Kronk and Yzma in their lab coats, as well as Yzma as the cat, which is really awesome. Just a really awesome set that I very much enjoy collecting. There's not much that needs to happen in the set, in my opinion, but there are a couple characters that I think need to be added. A 2-pack of Tipo and Chaka, I think, makes a lot of sense. It would have to be a 2-pack. They'd be small pops because they are small children. I think that a pop of Rudy would be hilarious. I've talked about it on the channel before. He's basically the old man from the beginning of the movie where he gets, like, booted out of the window. I think that that would be an awesome pop to see for, like, a con exclusive. And then lastly, an Incan Palace Guard I think would be very interesting as well. I don't think it needs to be in, like, a 2-pack where you get, like, 2 of them. I think even just 1 of them would be fine. And then basically after that, there wouldn't be much left that you would really need or even be able to do besides just copying pops that are already done for the Emperor's New Groove.
Yeah, Emperor's New Groove, they've done a great job of, like, either making new characters or capturing those moments we still need. Like, there was the period where we got quite a bit of, like, the Yzmas, and we've gotten quite a bit of Kronks, which actually, I didn't mind the Kronks because Kronk is my favorite character, and I feel like it's a lot of people's favorite character from the Emperor's New Groove, so that was really cool to see those. I kind of miss Emperor's New Groove pops at Comic-Con. I kind of wish that maybe we would have even gotten one for New York Comic-Con instead of having, let's say, even Mr. Toad in that slot. Like, I would have loved to see even another Kronk instead of a Mr. Toad, because that Mr. Toad wasn't entirely the greatest. Emperor's New Groove has been a decent wave. There's been quite a bit of Kronks, but that may be towards my favor of ranking this decently high. I'm gonna give this, pull the lever, Kronk, maybe a 7.5 out of 10.
For the next set, we're going all the way back to the first ever set that I collected for Funko Pops, which is Saved by the Bell. Ah, what an awesome show. I love that show so much. I always have and always will. And yeah, the first set of pops that I ever bought, the first 6 pops that I ever got. And we have seen a new wave that's coming out, which is really cool. I really enjoy that wave. But I feel like there is a couple of characters that they could add. And those characters are Mr. Tuttle, the music teacher. I think that a pop of him would be really cool to see, as well as Max, who owns the Max, basically the restaurant that they hang out in. And then skipping from Saved by the Bell to Saved by the Bell College Years, I think that it's only fitting that we see a Mike Rogers. I think that pop could look very, very cool in, let's say, like his Canadian tuxedo of the all denim outfit. I think would be really awesome.
Yeah, Saved by the Bell was also one of the first sets that I collected, and actually was a set I mentioned on that previous podcast. Yeah, that original 6 set of pops with Zach, AC Slater, Screech, Jesse, Kelly, and Lisa. Really awesome. And then they finally made Mr. Belding, which is amazing, with the other versions of Kelly and Zach. And I can't wait for more Saved by the Bell pops at some point. I'm hoping at some point we get AC Slater in the ballerina outfit. I think would be hilarious as like a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive for like 2025 perhaps. But yeah, those new pops recently got released. Our good friends over at K-Dog and Fish actually have them in the bundle. So I think maybe soon I may have to get myself a bundle of new Saved by the Bell pops and then show them off for you guys on the channel. But yeah, I can't wait for more because I will definitely be buying those 3 brand new pops to officially once again be 100% complete of that Saved by the Bell set. I'm still going to rate this pretty high. I'm going to give it basically a 9 out of 10.
Moving on to the next set that I have on my list, I believe was probably also on DK's list for that first video, if I remember correctly, and that is Crash Bandicoot. A set that basically, between me and DK, we have the complete set, essentially. Very cool set with Crash Bandicoot. I mean, so many awesome characters. The flocked Crash Bandicoot is amazing. I really love that. The spinning Crash is so cool as well as the Crash Bandicoot in his cart, I think is a wicked pop as well. Just so many good pops. There's not very many pops in this set that aren't very good. They're all really good in their own rights. Just a really awesome set of pops. Maybe a little bit too many Crash Bandicoots in it, but that's fine because it's going to sell, and that is, of course, the main character and the name of the video game itself. But if I could add some characters to the Funko Pop lineup, it would be Uka Uka. I think that it would be really cool to go along with the Aku Aku, is that you see Uka Uka. That would be really, really cool. As well as another one that I've talked about on the channel before with Ripperoo. I think it'd be really cool to see a Ripperoo. And then one that I just thought of, which is pretty cool, would be probably Flocked, most likely, is Polar, the like polar bear. I think that it would be really cool to see that in pop form as well.
Yeah, Crash Bandicoot, one of my favorite sets to collect. I did mention that on the previous podcast of this same topic. The set's been pretty decent. A lot of crashes, though. I love the game covers, which I've yet to obtain and never arrived in Canada for some reason, but I love the way they did it with, obviously, Aku Aku being in front of Crash Bandicoot to basically give him that health power as you would do in the game. And yeah, there definitely is more that they can do that isn't Crash. You mentioned about Ripperoo, which is like my number one want for that set. However they do it, whether it's like him with the straight jacket or like even later on where I think he has like the disguise with like the mustache, I think it'd be hilarious to have either one of those, and I would definitely be all over that. And at this point, it's like I would love to see more side characters, although I wouldn't be surprised, obviously, another Crash, because it's the name of the game, so you're obviously going to get Crash, but I would love to see the resurgence of Crash Bandicoot Pops again with some of those villains slash side characters. And for the set overall, I am going to rate it probably a 7.5 out of 10, just because of the abundance of Crash Bandicoots there are of himself.
The next set on my list is one of the biggest sets, or like the most pops that I have for one set, and that is Stranger Things. There's been a ton of pops for Stranger Things, and some that are a little ridiculous too, which makes it very hard to have a full set because there's so many of each character, which does get annoying for, let's say, each season, or maybe a specific scene from each season. And then you have pops like the Golden Hopper, which is just ridiculously like unattainable at this point. It's so much money, as well as like the Robin and Steve that are limited piece counts. They're pretty high up there in price as well. So very hard to have a complete set of Stranger Things pops. But I've basically gotten to the point where I'll collect what I want for Stranger Things. If there's a new character that comes out, I'll grab that. But I don't think I'm going to grab like a ton of different variants for one certain character, like let's say like Mike or Will. But 3 pops that I would like to see for the set: Holly Wheeler. I think that she's an underrated character, and I really hope that in the next season she does have more of like a place and actually is kind of relevant to the story. I think that that'd be really cool. And then I think at that point we would see a Funko Pop. One that I'm surprised that we haven't seen yet, especially for like a con exclusive, is 8, or I think her name is Carrie. I think it'd be cool to see her. Of course, she was in season 2, I believe, and then never really returned. Maybe when they kind of finish up the story, maybe that's when she'll return, and then maybe then we will see a Funko Pop of her. And then a Mind Flayer. I think that it'd be really great to see a Mind Flayer, whether it's in just a 4-inch box or if it's in like even up to like a Moments kind of type box where it's a very big pop. I think it'd be really cool to see a Mind Flayer, though it wouldn't really look like a Funko Pop, but I think it is kind of necessary for the Stranger Things set.
Yeah, the Stranger Things set, when it first released, it was really awesome with the amount of things that they've done and the different versions, like the upside down versions of Eleven and Barb for Emerald City Comic Con was cool. But lately, in the last couple of years, it's just become a little bit ridiculous where let's re-release these pops, but they're blacklight. Let's re-release these pops, but we're gonna make this new specification called Sherbert Surprise. It is getting a little bit out of hand. There's obviously, it is coming to the point where it's like, you gotta be very careful of like what you want, because it's gonna be almost like what we talked about with Pokemon, where it's just like, it's becoming pointless variants of these characters. It's like, do I need all of these? While originally you may be thinking, oh, I'm gonna get the complete set, but it was almost like that for me with like The Office. But luckily enough at this point, I'm only 3 pops behind, so it's not really a biggie. But if I was still like halfway needing to complete the set, I probably would have given up at that point and just like only collected what I needed for new characters. But if they would have went down the momentum of like what they were doing originally, then I think it would be super high. But I may have to rate this like a 6 out of 10. I know that's a little bit steep, but I don't know. Like, I think really the only thing saving it nowadays is maybe even some of the new pops for like the NFT set that just recently released. That a lot of those are newer characters that we haven't gotten yet. And also to answer, now as I remember, there is a new wave of Stranger Things of like Vecna and I think a Demogorgon, but Mind Flayer is a part of that set.
Oh.
So there is a Mind Flayer pop, if I'm not mistaken, that is, but it's only in that, like, I don't know, I think it's another maybe specification because it is kind of like almost the colorway of like the Vecna Hot Topic exclusive pop.
The next set that I have on my list here is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. What a great set of pops for so many different things. I believe there's like 3 or 4 different like actual sets in that, and what I mean by that is like whether it's movies or like retro toys, stuff like that, so or comics. It's really cool. It's a very interesting set that I definitely need to catch up on purchasing because I'm slacking. At one point it was like, okay, I'm looking good. I got quite a bit of this set, and now it's like, oh god, there's so many pops that I need for this set still. But I love TMNT. I always have and probably always will, so it's really cool to collect the pops. Though there is a bunch of different versions of the Turtles, but I feel like they're all different in their own sense. There's none that are really like the same thing, so I think that that's good. But characters that I would like to see is the Turtles, but more specifically in, I believe it's the 3rd live action movie where they're in the samurai outfits. I think that that would be really cool, something that I've wanted to see in Funko Pop form. I would be very excited to see that. And then for the retro toys lineup, Mondo Gecko and Genghis Frog.
Yeah, the Turtles pops have been really cool, especially how they've been able to adapt to. We're not only doing the television like normally, it would be retro toys. Then they go to the Secret of the Ooze movie and doing the comics versions by exploring like Last Ronin and Dark Leonardo and stuff like that. So that's been really cool, but it is kind of a repetitive lineup where obviously because it is Ninja Turtles, 3/4 of the set is Raphael, Donatello, Leonardo, and Michelangelo, which is to be expected. So it's kind of hard to be like, I already have these pops, what's kind of really like, even looking at like the newer set that they just did for like classic TMNT, it's like, okay, if I have the older ones, why do I need these newer ones? Like what makes it so appealing to where I want to get the 14th Leonardo? But with the other characters that they have done that you can only get in some sort of way, whether it's, let's say, the 6-inch Krang, that's a Entertainment Earth exclusive, or you get, let's say, Triceraton, which is a part of the Series 2 NFT set. So there is unique ways of getting other characters, but I feel like, yeah, Ninja Turtles at this point also is like what we talked about with Stranger Things and Pokemon. You gotta be really specific on which ones you have. So for that, I am gonna rate it like maybe like a 7 out of 10 because of how they're able to expand, but of course there's tons of the 4 Turtles.
The next set that I have on here is one of the sets that early in my collecting I was like, oh, this is so cool that we have figures of these people, and that's for the Pop Rocks lineup. And I'm not really going to say too much about it because we did just do a full podcast basically talking about music and some of our favorite Pop Rocks and what we'd like to see next. So go watch that if you haven't watched it after you're done with this pod, where you can kind of hear my opinion more about Pop Rocks. But to sum it up, it's music. Everyone loves music. They make cool pops for these people that make music that we listen to in our eardrums. I do have 3 pops here that I did not talk about on the other podcast. So pops that I would like to see next for the Pop Rocks lineup. Actually, there's one that DK kind of mentioned in that podcast, but not in full. And that's Vinnie Vincent and Eric Carr for the Kiss set. We need these pops. It's 2 other iconic looks for Kiss, and I would really like to see them. I didn't put them separately because I think they kind of go hand in hand. Not as a 2-pack though, maybe just a wave of 2 separate pops there. And then another one that DK also did mention, now that I think about it, is Eminem/Slim Shady. Funko needs to get this license. We had kind of speculation that they were going to, and then they made like the B-Rabbit for the 8 Mile movie, but never any actual Eminem pops, and there is a plethora of stuff that they could do, whether it's albums, moments, or just singular pops of Eminem with all of his different looks throughout his pretty dang long career at this point. And then the last one that I have on this list, I was gonna write Red Hot Chili Peppers, but more specifically Flea. I would really love to see a Flea pop. Of course, if they did all 4 band members, I would be super ecstatic as well because Red Hot Chili Peppers is one of my favorite bands, but Flea's my favorite bassist of all time, and I think that there'd be a bunch of cool versions of Flea that we could see, whether he's naked or has different colored hair. Flea's awesome, and I think that they could really make some cool pops of him.
Pop Rock's lineup is great. We did go over it in what would have been, as you guys are listening to this, a couple of weeks ago, but it's actually, as we are recording this podcast, podcast. We recorded that Rocks podcast right before. We're recording it back to back, being released on 2 separate dates. Yeah, so I don't even know yet how you guys would have enjoyed the Rocks podcast, and I guess especially the New York Comic Con podcast that actually, as we're recording this, releases tomorrow on the channel and is yet to release. So I don't know how you guys thought about that, but hopefully you guys did enjoy that one. But yeah, the Rocks lineup is awesome. They've done quite a bit for what I personally like as terms to my favorite artists and musicians, while when I first started collecting, there wasn't that many of my favorite artists and musicians, and over time they have, like Green Day, my favorite band of all time, just got made within the last 3 years or so, which is amazing. And of course, we've had a plethora of other different bands and musicians that we like, so there isn't really much left that I'm personally looking for that I know I would be getting. But the Rocks lineup, besides the times when they would do, hey, let's do a 5,000 piece silver metallic pop going to Hot Topic. Other than that, the lineup has been pretty decent with what we have, and especially the abundance of Notorious B.I.G.'s and Britney Spears, and sometimes they do pointless pops, even nowadays, and I guess I can mention this now, and it's a set that I'm debating on getting it because it's a part of one thing, but I'm not entirely a fan of these musicians or artists, but they have announced the BTS Toy Story set, debating on getting, but not because it's Toy Story, but I have never once listened to BTS besides maybe the songs that are featured on Fortnite Festival. So for the most part, sometimes they do pointless stuff, sometimes they do amazing things, so I'm going to rank it 6 out of 10.
The next set here is kind of a couple of different sets that are kind of put together, but that is just Jim Henson pops. So that's basically your Muppets, Sesame Street, Labyrinth, the Dark Crystal, or whatever else they do decide to make, because there's other things that Jim Henson has also done, or the company itself as well, not just specifically the person Jim Henson. But I love collecting these things. The Muppets and Sesame Street are very near and dear to me. I collected a lot of Muppets and Sesame Street stuff growing up, and still have a lot of that stuff on display in my house, so it's really cool. It's such a great set, and the resurgence of the Muppets pops is so awesome. I'm so happy about it. Of course, we haven't seen a ton yet, but we have gotten 2 new Kermits, one with the 2-pack with Constantine, really awesome. I hope that we see a lot of cool stuff. Of course, there was the announcement for flocked and non-flocked version of the animal with his drum kit, which is awesome as well. And then with Sesame Street as well, we got a few different pops. We got Elmo with Rocco, which is pretty dang cool, as well as the Abby Cadabby, I believe her name is. So that's really cool. I love this set, especially when there's actual Jim Henson pops where he's holding some of the different puppets that he's made, as well as the Dark Crystal set's really cool. The Labyrinth set is amazing, and I think it's super underrated. I think that there could be a million different pops that we could add to the Labyrinth set, but I have picked 3 pops here. The 3 pops that I picked are for different things from Jim Henson. So the first one is with Muppets, and that's Sweetums, and it would have to be flocked, and unfortunately it would have to be a 6-inch pop. I think that this would be awesome, something that's very high up on my list of wands. And then for Sesame Street, I went with a character that is not Elmo because they're doing too many Elmos, but he is basically kind of side character for Elmo, that being Mr. Noodle. I think it'd be really cool to see a human character for the Sesame Street lineup, and hopefully we do see more after that as well. And then lastly, a 2-pack for Labyrinth set, and that would be 2 Fireys. I love these characters. I've debated getting a Fiery tattooed on my body, so I would definitely be picking up a 2-pack of Fireys from the Labyrinth, where basically one is kind of normal, and then the other one has his head absolutely taken off of his body or his neck. I think that that would be perfect for this 2-pack, and maybe we'll see that, but I don't know the likeliness of us getting more Labyrinth pops at this point.
More Labyrinth pops would be amazing, and it's awesome that you actually mentioned about the Fireys, because I was thinking that could be the next pops that they make. Of course, yeah, it's awesome to see the resurgence of Sesame Street and the Muppets be brought back into pop form, with, of course, seeing Elmo and then Kermit for San Diego Comic-Con, and the 2 animal pops for New York Comic-Con are awesome. I hope that this continues going into the year of 2025, whether we get really awesome versions of already existing characters or just brand new characters in general. Even for Sesame Street recently, they just recently had the Big Bird in the Nest, which I seen at our local GameStop, so that was really cool to see. So hopefully there is more Jim Henson love as terms to Funko in general. And how I would rate the set of what we've gotten thus far, yes, there's different variants, but I think it's variants that do make sense, so I'll give it at the moment a solid 8.5 out of 10.
One thing that I did want to mention that I can't believe I forgot when kind of listing off things is Fraggle Rock as well. Moving on to the next set of pops here is Looney Tunes. A very expensive set to collect for the most part, but also a very freaking cool set. The Speedy Gonzales, which I have in my collection, is an amazing pop. Some of the NFT pops that we've seen with like Foghorn Leghorn, Wile E. Coyote, Roadrunner, stuff like that is really cool, as well as the Space Jam NFT pops, or the original Space Jam pops that we've seen back in like 2016 or 17, I think is when they came out. But then besides that, like, we do have the Space Jam pops for the new movie, which some of those are pretty cool, but there is some variants where it's like, do we need this many versions of LeBron James when we haven't even seen a Toon Squad Michael Jordan pop? And then, of course, there is like the mashups that we've seen with the DC characters. We've seen the mashups for the Warner Bros. 100, which is pretty cool when it comes to like Scooby-Doo mashup, or you have like Flintstone, stuff like that. So there's definitely a lot of different things to collect for Looney Tunes, and I hopefully one day will have all of it.
Yeah, Looney Tunes has been solid. Of course, you're gonna get your typical like somewhat abundance of Bugs Bunnies and Daffy Ducks and stuff like that, but they've done a great job with regular Looney Tunes, especially Space Jam, like you mentioned. And then with the Comic-Con exclusives throughout the entire duration of Looney Tunes Funko Pops, they've done such a great job with like really cool variants of characters, or like the first time ever we're getting characters. So I really enjoyed that aspect. Overall, I will actually rate this pretty high. I'll give it like maybe a 9 out of 10.
The next set that I have on this list, which is actually the second to last set now at this point, is another one of those sets where it's a bunch of different shows, I guess you could say, that are kind of pushed into one category, and that is Nickelodeon. I love the Nickelodeon pops when it comes to some of the stuff that we've seen, which is so cool, with, of course, the SpongeBob pops, which are awesome. There might be a few too many SpongeBobs, but that's okay, because SpongeBob has done a ton of really cool things over the course of that show. The Blue's Clues pops that we've seen, so awesome, so exciting to see two different versions of Blue, and then also getting Steve as well is so awesome. I'm so super excited about that. The Rugrats lineup is something that's awesome. I really do need to start collecting those pops before they get too expensive and kind of unaffordable, but I do have like Reptar, which is really awesome to kind of give balance to that show in my Nickelodeon collection. And then like with the new Jimmy Neutron pop, which was a pop that I was looking for so long for Funko to make, and they finally made it, and I think that that one turned out very, very well, as well as the Danny Phantom pop is really cool. There's a lot of really great pops in this set, but there can always be more, and the ones that I've put in this list for the SpongeBob lineup, the Flying Dutchman, I say it every time, I cannot believe there's not a Flying Dutchman pop at this point. If they make it and it's not glow in the dark, oh, I'm coming to Seattle and I don't know, do bad things. For the Rugrats lineup, Kimmy Finster I think would be an awesome pop. I can't believe we haven't seen a Kimmy pop. And then lastly, to go along with that Jimmy Neutron, I think we need a Carl Weezer. And then even now thinking about it, like even if it was put in a 2-pack with Sheen, I think that that would be really great as well.
Yeah, they've done pretty good with Nickelodeon. And speaking of Jimmy Neutron, it is in the rumor mill about a new Jimmy Neutron and then the first Carl and Sheen pops. So I'm not sure. It'd probably be separate pops, but wouldn't mind if it was a multi-pack at the same time. I'll give it an 8 out of 10.
And then the last and final set in this list, Yu-Gi-Oh! It has to be in here. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is an awesome set that me and DK both collect. I'm kind of starting to fall behind from what he has in his collection. He's got a little bit more. But Yu-Gi-Oh! Is awesome. It's been in my life almost my entire life, so really, really cool. There's so many iconic characters and duel monsters. The cards are amazing. The pops are wicked. It is honestly one of the best sets. Definitely my favorite anime set. But they still need to keep it up. They need to keep pumping all the awesome pops that they've been giving us. When they did the Summon Skull, like that was really awesome. And then we got Karibo finally, and that was awesome. Those were like two of my biggest wants that I really wanted in my collection, and thankful that Funko finally decided to make those characters. But three that I do have here are the Flaming Swordsman. I've said it before. Flaming Swordsman's awesome. I believe I had an action figure of the Flaming Swordsman when I was a kid and fell in love with that duel monster. He is wicked. So in pop form, I think he'd be really cool as well. And then Pot of Greed. I think we need a Pot of Greed. I wouldn't be surprised if we end up seeing like a glow-in-the-dark one as well. It is like at this point one of the more iconic cards from Yu-Gi-Oh! Out of nowhere. I think it's maybe because of some of the memes that have come out, but Pot of Greed's so iconic, I can't believe Funko hasn't been like just pushing that in our face. It's very surprising. And then the last one is Change of Heart. I think a Change of Heart Funko Pop would be unreal. I don't know exactly how they do it with, of course, like the light side and the dark side, but I think Funko could figure it out, and I think it'd be one of those pops that goes down in history as just one of those amazing pops.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Is an amazing set, and it's so highly underrated as an anime in general. Oh, what am I rating this? I'm okay with, like, obviously the GX stuff, and they haven't really done an abundance of them yet. I have yet to see GX. A 9 out of 10. So with that being said, that is going to be the end of this edition of a Funko Popcast. And if you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Let us know your favorite sets of Funko Pops to collect, or what your favorite is out of the selection MD Shady had mentioned. And we hope to see you guys on another edition of a Funko Popcast, or video in general on the channel. 1, 2, 3, I'm out of here.
Peace in, peace out.